Hi, I'm Laura Coyle, and I'm going to share with you 3 new Adobe Illustrator 2025 color swatch features that are going to make your design workflow even smoother. First, we're going to be able to add color chips to the artboard. And then we can also add gradient swatches and pattern fill swatches to our color groups in the swatches panel. And finally, we can take a selection of swatches and make a gradient out of it. So let's take a look. First, we're going to look at making a gradient from our color swatches. So I'll go over to the swatches panel, and you need to select the color swatches that you're going to use to make your gradient. But here's a tip. It's helpful if you organize your swatches in the order that you want them to appear in the gradient first. So I want this darker pink to come after the red swatch, so I'm just dragging it, moving it there. And then I have the lighter pink, and then this yellow is here, so those will work. Now what I want to do is select these swatches, first selecting the red, holding Shift, the darker pink, the lighter pink, and then I'm going to select the yellow now by holding the Command key on a Mac or Control key on a PC. And now I have my 4 swatches selected. Then I can go up to the Options flyout menu here and choose Create Gradient. This opens up the gradient panel, and it makes a color stop for every one of those swatches that I selected. It's just a linear gradient, but I can make adjustments to it here. So I could change it to a radial gradient if I wanted, or go back to linear and make adjustments maybe to these color stops here. And then when I'm finished, to save it as a swatch, I can just take this gradient thumbnail here and drag it into the swatches panel. And now I have a new gradient swatch that I can apply to my artwork. The next new color swatch feature in Adobe Illustrator 2025 is that we can now have pattern fill swatches along with gradient swatches and solid color swatches in color groups. So this is something that we couldn't do before because swatch groups could only contain solid colors. So let's give it a try. I've got here in my swatches panel a couple of pattern fills, there's a gradient, and of course, a lot of solid color swatches. So I'm going to select all of them, and then I'll click on the new swatch group button. And here I'm going to call this my Paisley group and click OK. Now, as you can see, I have a color group with all of the swatches inside. So this can be helpful for organizing all of your swatches for a project. But one thing you need to know is that these color groups are not compatible with your CC libraries. So if I select that color group folder and then click here on the Add Selected Swatches to a CC Library button, then we can see we get a warning that says gradients and patterns cannot be added to a library. So I won't be able to save this color group. If I want to save it in a CC library, I need to remove those gradient and pattern swatches. So I'll just click OK. However, if you want to save it in one of your panel libraries like this, then you can do that using Save Swatches. And any color groups that you have on your swatches panel will be intact and saved in your panel libraries. Now, if you're like me and you like to use color groups with recolor artwork, that feature is not going to change. So here, if I select this pattern fill and I go up and open up recolor artwork, if I were to select this color group here from my swatches panel, it's only going to apply the solid colors and it will ignore the gradient and the pattern fill swatches so that you can use recolor artwork as you normally would. We're going to look at another color swatch feature now, but if you're enjoying these tips, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel and sign up for my email newsletter. I deliver Illustrator tips straight to your inbox. Now let's take a look at the new color swatches on the artboard feature. And this is much anticipated and it's a good start, but I'm looking forward to the next evolution. So let's take a look at how this works. First of all, I have some artwork here, and then I have the swatches for this art already saved in my swatches panel. So I'm going to select the swatches, holding Shift, and then go up to the flyout menu of the swatches panel and choose Create Swatch Info. This opens up a dialog box with a lot of different settings here, but the first thing that I'm going to do is click the Reset button, just to show you what the default settings look like, and then I'll click Create. And this gives us some really large color chips, too big for this file, but I will be able to resize those and I'll show you that. But this artwork is about 5 inches by 7 inches. And we're seeing this with every bit of information added to those chips, but we can adjust that too. First, we're going to look at some of the features. And if we go to the layers panel, we can see there is a swatch info layer here now. And if I twirl this down, I can see the object that is this swatch info object. And if you create more of these, they will show up on this swatch info layer. So my swatch info is currently selected. And I'm just going to go up to the top control bar and look in the upper left corner here. And we can see what Illustrator is identifying this object as. It's Swatches Info. And then we have other options here. Now, if you don't have the top control bar open, you can get this from the window menu and control, or you can go over to the properties panel and you'll see that same information here in this section. I'll close that. And then we'll go back over to the control bar. So here under card content, if I click on this, I have checkboxes where I can control some of these options. So for these swatches, I want to uncheck hex and HSB. I just want that CMYK formula information, and the color name, I want that, but I'm going to uncheck show ink type, and I'm going to turn off the card background, which is that white background behind the chips. So at least we're able to update these settings live. Now let's go to the next option. I could change the text color here, but I don't want to do that. Let's try this. I can make these vertical, and let me zoom out so we can actually see the effect of that there. The next option is the spacing between the different swatches, and this looks good to me. So if I wanted to make a better presentation out of this, I could just back out here, and I have to back out a little more, and then, just scale those so that they're closer to the size of the artboard. Now this makes the type really tiny and not legible. There's no option to change the font size, so we're going to have to regenerate and change the size of the chip. So I'm going back over to the swatches panel, holding shift as I select these swatches, and then I'll go to the options menu and choose Create Swatch Info. Now here in the dialog box, I have the same options that we looked at before. So I can choose just to show the CMYK, the color name, and then I can uncheck these options. But here we can actually change the size of those swatches. So I'm going to change this to 1/2 inch to make them smaller. I'll come down here, make them vertical, and I'll leave the spacing at the default. And before I click create, I just want to encourage you to use this link here to let Adobe know what improvements you'd like to see. So now that I've got all those options, I'm going to click create, and then here are my new swatches. So I have a slightly smaller swatch and then larger information, so it's a little easier to read. And I do have a lot of swatches here. So if I want to make it closer to the size of the artboard, I can click on transform, and let's make this 6.5 inches tall. And there we go. So now what I have, I'm going to go ahead and delete these other swatches that are also on the same swatch info layer. Let me delete those and move these here. And so now this is a better presentation. And if I zoom in, we can see the font size is legible. So just making that adjustment to the chip size, making it 1/2 inch, makes it smaller in relation to that type, and then I could scale everything down and have this still be legible. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to have some control over the font size, but this is my workaround for now. All right, so those are the 3 new color swatch features in Adobe Illustrator 2025. Thanks for watching. I'm Laura Coyle, and I teach Adobe Illustrator here on YouTube and in my online learning community. If you're ready for more Illustrator tips and tricks, head over to lauracoylecreative.com and join my email list. You'll get a free welcome gift and my best Illustrator tips sent straight to your inbox. And I'll see you in the next video.